Hello! Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Giselle Tongi, Executive Director po of FilAm Arts. I'm so excited that you are all joining us today for an exciting afternoon. We're so excited to be partnering with our guest, our special speaker today. Si Kirby Araullo is a Filipino-American historian, content creator, and a renowned culture bearer. If you have not seen his YouTube videos, nako po, you're missing out. So you should check it out after this. But he's also currently the National Coordinator for Culture and Heritage for the National Alliance for Filipino Concerns, also called NAFCON. Kirby is well rooted in his culture and passionate about his heritage. He strives to empower the youth and serve the people through knowledge and creativity. Kirby is a Datu and Lakan by blood, but an artist, scholar, and activist at heart. He joins us today here on FilAm Arts to talk about celebrating, Asian American Pacific Islander Month, and also exploring our Filipino heritage in the diaspora. Kirby?
Hello, maraming salamat. You can hear me, right?
I can hear you.
There you go. Hi.
Hi.
Mabuhay. Magandang
Mabuhay.
araw. Thanks for having me. Salamat again for having me this afternoon, Saturday.
Yes, Kirby, I wasn't in my barong originally, but nakabarong ka. So, mabilis akong nagbarong din na may,
I know.
na may butterfly sleeves. So, I'm so excited for what you're going to be sharing with us today.
Salamat. I'm also excited and nervous.
Please take it away.
Salamat. Thank you, G. Mabit yung. Hello. So today we'll be talking about, again, like what G said, celebrating our roots and exploring our Filipino heritage here in the diaspora, because we are all here in the diaspora. There we go. So what does it mean to have Filipino pride? So this is what I always ask a lot of my students. This is one of the pictures you see on Google when you Google the term Filipino pride. So is it Apple the app? Is it Pia? Is it Cherise or Jake? Is it Lea Salonga? Is it Manny Pacquiao? Because when Manny Pacquiao fights, everybody is tuning in. So is this Filipino pride? So this is something that I always ask our students whenever I teach a workshop in high school with high school students. Or this is another question I ask: Is it about Miss Universe? So last week we just had the Miss Universe pageant. Is it again about winning Miss Universe? Is this a source of our Filipino pride, or is it really our heritage? So yeah. So speaking of heritage, what exactly is heritage? So as G mentioned, May is Heritage Month here in the U.S. and it's also Heritage Month in the Philippines. It's our National Heritage Month in the Philippines. It's also the Asian American Heritage Month here in the U.S. and the Asian Heritage Month in Canada. So May is a big month for our heritage. But heritage sometimes is confusing to a lot of people. No, kunwari, when we think of heritage, people the textbook definitions, a dictionary, heritage means something that was passed down from our ancestors. So from one generation to the next. So this could be artifacts. This could literally be like heirloom pieces. But for me, when you really look at heritage, the significance of heritage is much deeper than just this physical things that we inherit from our ancestors. A lot of it are actually not physical. So these are example of our Filipino heritage, the gold that our ancestors, the golden artifacts our ancestors left from 1,000 years ago. Gaya ng the golden tara that you can find in Chicago actually, and the rest I believe you can find in the Ayala Museum in Manila, in Makati. So yeah, so heritage is a more complex thing than just like things that were passed down. Heritage could also mean the language we speak. So for example, my mother's side of the family is Kapampangan, so I can speak Kapampangan. I can also speak Tagalog. So both of those are also part of our heritage. So speaking the languages of our ancestors is our heritage. And also writing in the indigenous scripts from the Philippines, gaya ng Baybayin, o kaya ng Kulitan, and even the indigenous Mangyan, these are also all part of our heritage. Ano pa ba? Heritage is also, ano ba, next slide. The dances. So if you go, if you celebrate, for a lot of our younger Filipino Americans dito sa US, there's a lot of PCNs in different campuses or the Filipino culture nights. And, we all see the dances. We all celebrate the dances from Singkil to Tinikling to Sagayan to Sinulog. These are also part of our heritage. These are the more of like, what do you call this? The more the celebratory part of our heritage, where we dances and embody these dances from our ancestors, from our people. Um, so yeah, that's also a big part of our heritage, and it's very colorful. As Filipinos, our country, our islands, our archipelago in the motherland is very diverse. And this is my favorite part of our heritage too, is food. So the pictures I include here are the food that I was craving for, and I actually had a dream last night eating isaw and betamax. So for those who grew up in the Philippines, isaw is the chicken, or the both the chicken and the pork intestines, and then betamax is the pork blood. And then there's sisig, because I'm also from Angeles City, where sisig came from. And then, halo-halo, kasi mainit na naman. So halo-halo. So these are all part of heritage. Heritage is also the way our grandmas, our mothers taught us how to cook. Their recipes, because it's a recipe, but it's not written. When you ask them, like, what's the recipe for this, grandma? My lola would be like, my mamang would be like, there's no recipe, just watch me do it. So that's also part of our heritage. And then, you know part of our heritage, a bigger part of our heritage for me, are the values that we keep as Filipinos, as Filipino Americans. Even the simple things like eating together, like kamayan, or even just eating together every dinner, every lunch at home, when everybody gathers around the table. That's part of our heritage. Pagmamano, when we mano, when we bless our grandparents, or even the elders, to show respect. Even and Disney gave us this short film about um, the tradition of making parol in the Philippines. And for me, who grew up in Pampanga from my childhood, this was a big part of our childhood. We learned how to make parols from our elders. So this is part of our heritage then. And then a big part of our heritage is also this bayanihan spirit, this collective spirit of helping one another. Like you see in this bottom right picture, right, sunrise side, yeah. When you're lift when people come together when in times of need, and especially during this time of pandemic. But then, for us here in the diaspora in the US, our heritage seems like it's always under attack, because all around us, when we watch the TV, we watch Netflix, when we go on social media, everything around us is really telling us to be more American, telling us to speak English, telling us to adapt to the American life, to the American dream, instead of like really embracing our true heritage. But again, our heritage is really rich and colorful, that we should actually celebrate it, instead of really just assimilating. And the one thing about America too, in the United States, like, the beauty of this country is that we can embrace who we are, and at the same time, be part of this greater community. So yeah, so we are always, in schools, in the workplace, in the media, we're always reminded to be more American than embracing our own heritage. Um, So for me, knowing our roots is really important when we celebrate our heritage, because again, heritage is not just the physical things that we inherit. It's not just the barong that your grandma gave you. This is from my grandma. So it's not just that. It's not just the things that they passed down to us, or not just the physical things, but really the wisdoms and the lessons that we learned from their experiences, the lived experiences. And heritage is also our lived experiences as Filipinos in the diaspora. So what we're passing down to the next generation, the values that we keep as a community. This is heritage, and it's not just the colorful traditional outfits that you see people wear. I mean, if you follow me on social media, I love wearing our colorful pre-colonial outfits, because it reminds us that our culture is much deeper than what people always think of Filipino. That our culture and our history, our ancestors, we have a deeper history than just the discovery in 1521. So, for example, when we say salamat, today Filipinos say salamat to say thank you, as an expression of gratitude. And today people think salamat just means thank you, but if you really dig deeper on the root of the word salamat, it comes from the word salam, the same word where shalom in Hebrew came from, the same word where salam in Arabic came from. So it really means peace. So our ancestors, when they express gratitude to the community, to the other person, they really wish the other person peace. So this is a reminder for us that our heritage is much more colorful than what we see in the surface. So this is how you write salamat actually in Baybayin, the Tagalog script, or in Kulitan, the Kapampangan script. So salamat, when we express when we express salam, or when we express gratitude to the other people, when we express gratitude, when we say salamat, we really wish the other person peace, prosperity, good health, and a long life. So that's how collective the spirit, or the collective spirit of our ancestor, the collective culture in our heritage really is. So yeah. And I want to get into the discussion more how we can explore our heritage as Filipinos in the diaspora. So yes, maraming salamat. Yeah, that's me, by the way, in chibi art form.
Kirby, that was so that was I, I have so many questions and I just wanted to talk to you, about,
Mhm.
because it's Asian American Pacific
Yeah.
Islander Heritage
Hmm.
Month, Kirby. You really broke down what heritage means, right? But what does it mean to be part of this Asian
Hmm.
American Pacific Island group, right?
Yeah.
How do the Filipinos fit
Mm.
into that group? Because why
Yeah.
do I feel that when people think Asian American, they think of Chinese,
Hmm.
Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Come, how come? Is it because of our colonized roots that we are not considered Asian Americans?
Hmm.
Just like Professor Anthony Ocampo says, right?
Hmm.
We're the
Yeah.
Latinos of Asia.
Yeah.
So should we be celebrating this month because we are part of the
Hmm.
Asian American Pacific Islander
Yeah.
collective, right?
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
break it down for us because it gets confusing?
Yeah, I can see how it can get confusing, especially for us in the diaspora, no? Because in the Philippines, we all know we're Asians. But in the diaspora, we're always like told that we're not, or like I think it really stems with colonialism that you mentioned. Because one, our culture is very different now compared to our Asian neighbors. It's very a mix. We have like cultures that we inherit from our colonial past, and we also have roots that we inherit from our indigenous past. So it's very mixed. So it can get confusing for the outsiders, and this confusion was actually, what do you call this, amplified by American colonialism in the Philippines. So when they first came to the Philippines, they saw us as Asians, and then and around the same time we had the Chinese Exclusion Act, when they tried to stop Asians from entering the U.S., but they needed Filipino workers in their farms, in the canneries in Alaska, in the plantations in Hawaii. So what they did, they had a loophole, and suddenly Filipinos are not, are exempted from being Asians. So suddenly we're, considered Pacific Islanders. So it's like it was just this political thing that they, or how I would describe, is like how Uncle Sam wanted us to fit into certain boxes when depending on his needs. So it's really, it has a lot to do with geopolitics, or like colonialism, imperialism, all these isms that is really meant to exploit our people.
Hmm.
So when they needed us, we basically, when they want us to be Asians, they were labeled as Asians, and when they wanted us to be Pacific Islanders, they would tell us that we're not Asians, we're from the Pacific Island. So it's really complicated.
Yes, our history is definitely complicated.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, everyone is celebrating this month,
Hmm.
right? And to me, it's like, why do we get only 1 month to celebrate Asian American
True.
Pacific Islander,
Yeah.
right?
There's a lot of us too.
Right. And Filipinos are the fastest,
Hmm.
one of the fastest
Growing.
AAPM
Yeah.
growing groups,
Yeah.
right? But why do I feel that there's this internal sort of structural racism
Hmm.
within the Asian American
Hmm.
understanding of
Yeah.
of I feel it and I have to
Yeah.
acknowledge it, right? Um,
Yeah.
and I think, it's important for us to have these conversations in a safe
Hmm.
space,
Hmm.
Kirby. Di
Yeah.
ba? Kasi medyo mahirap if we're having this conversation at dinner with your parents who,
Yeah.
di ba, we need to have sort of a difference of opinion and that's
Hmm.
okay, right? But pag tinatanong ako, Asian ka ba? Oh, you're Asian? What? You don't look Asian? Or
Yeah.
your English is so good. How are you
Mm,
Filipino?
yeah.
And that really makes me upset.
Hmm.
Di ba? Pag sinabi,
Yeah.
oh, your English is so good. You're from the
I
Philippines.
get I get that a lot too.
How do we combat all of these microaggressions?
Mm. For me, the way I do it is through education. That's why I make educational content, to just open the minds of the people. Hindi lang yung mga kababayan natin, but also, others. That's why I also make my videos mostly in English so that, other people can also learn from it. That, our histories are complicated. We're not just like these labels that you see, that, the stereotypes that you check, in the box. So yeah, for me, it's really showing that we have deeper roots. It's really showing that, for example, when they wanna, or they're confused why we speak good English, it's really because colonialism. So that's why I made a video about it. I remember making a video about it. How come Filipinos speak good English? Kasi nga, we were basically forced to speak English. Yeah, we were taught in schools to speak English. I remember my grandma tells me when she was younger, my lola from Pangasinan, that when she was in grade school, that they would get punished for every Tagalog or Pangasinan word they speak in class. Back when she was younger, when she was in school before World War II, and she has really great English. I found her letters after she passed away. I found her letters to her friends. I'm like, wow, this is like really formal, nice English, and it's just a little letter to her friend living across town.
Kirby, can you share with us? I saw John Eric Pabalan's.
Mm,
He commented that, and I know a lot of people that love your videos. Can you share with us what was your driving force to
mm,
to create your own YouTube
mhm.
channel? Because it's a lot of work. I
Yeah,
mean, the, the work that you put into it, I have to acknowledge as a
thank you.
producer. I see the work that you put
Salamat.
out, and you do it consistently, and no one else does it but you, right?
I'm not sure. Hopefully there are others who also making this type of content.
Right, but I mean, you are the sole
Oh
person
yeah, in my channel,
who
yes, yes,
edits,
yeah.
writes
So
it,
I'm a one
voices
person
it.
team. Yeah.
Right. So how did you decide, like, what was the
Mm,
driving force to do this?
okay, I can share a little bit more about I guess, my own roots and history. So I grew up again in the Philippines, and I grew up around culture bearers. I grew up around community leaders, community elders. So I was exposed to a lot of like culture, a lot of like the history of our hometown in Pampanga. So for me, I took that for granted until I moved to the US and then realized that this is not something that every Filipino know. For example, funny story, when I first moved to California in high school, sa Artesia High, so shout out to the 562 area code in SoCal. So when I was in high school, the first day, there's two Filipino students. They became my friends eventually, two of my closest friends. But they were debating, they were betting. They were actually nagpupustahan sila if I was Filipino or Vietnamese or Korean, because they saw me writing in baybayin. So for me, like, oh, okay, so one, I don't look like a typical Filipino, I guess, or and two, they saw me writing in baybayin, so they thought I was not Filipino. So for me, like, oh, they're not even aware that we have baybayin.
Mm. Yeah,
That was like an
a
eye
lot of
opening.
people call
Yeah,
it. A lot of people, Kirby, call it alibata.
yeah. The wrong name for it.
Right. So, you were in high school
Hmm.
when you moved here.
Yeah.
There were kids that didn't know you were Filipino.
Hmm.
Tapos,
Yeah, and then even in college, I have friends who thought that Filipino music is just ocho ocho.
ah,
They were huge K-pop fans, and but then they never realized that Filipino music is much, deeper than just the
right.
novelty music.
But Filipino music,
Hmm.
OPM, is also written
Yeah,
in English, right? So
yeah,
it's
a lot of it is in
confusing,
English too.
diba?
Yeah, yeah. So I saw that there's a lot of confusion, and then it really started actually in college. Then, kasi we do high school outreach to the high school community. We encourage them to explore higher ed and also pursue higher ed and explore Filipino heritage in the different conferences, workshops that we do with the high schools. And I and that's when I realized like a lot of things that I know are not, common knowledge. Really, really. And then when they ask me, Kuya Kirby, is there a book? And I would refer them to a book, but it's not available to them. It's not accessible to them to find these books. So that's really when I started making videos that are educational. Okay, I'll instead of like, telling them to get this book, one is expensive, or if you can even find it, you know. So I started making. Dun ako talaga nag-umpisa na to make educational videos it was really for mostly high school students when I started. High school student in the US who are of Filipino heritage. Yeah. So shout out to all the high school students that I met throughout the years.
Nice. So what has the response been so far,
Mm.
Kirby? Has it been just phenomenal, like unexpected?
Yeah. Yeah, it was unexpected kasi I actually started YouTube a long time ago. Back when YouTube started, 2005, when I make skits for my filmmaking class. I remember in high school. But and then in college in UC Davis, my when I moved to the dorm, I did a daily vlog before daily vlog became a thing. So that was really just I was just showing my life in college at the dorm. Pero it wasn't really when I switched to sharing my knowledge, sharing what I know about Filipino culture and history, that the numbers, if you look at the analytics, the data from the people watching it, the viewers, the subscribers really jumped like, triple, 10 times more. So it was really when I realized, like, it's really when I started embracing my identity and sharing my identity, sharing my heritage to the broader viewers, that audience, that people really connected with me. It wasn't when I was just showing those little skits or little even pranks that I did in college. So yeah, so it was really when I embraced my roots and expressed it in social media, in my channel, that I got connected to a lot more people.
Awesome. So we're asking people that are watching right
Hmm.
now on FilAm Arts if they have any questions. I'll start off with one question from our board member, Marcy Taylor. And she asks about, what are the three most popular historical misconceptions about the
Mm,
Philippines? Because marami, di ba?
yeah, yeah. Tatlo lang ba kailangan natin?
Because a lot of people, I mean, whenever I tell them,
Mm,
yeah, my mother's from the Philippines, I grew up
mm,
there. Um, so many misconceptions,
yeah,
right? What
yeah,
what are the three that you can name, for example, Magellan,
yeah.
right?
That's my number one example.
Okay, so talk to us about Magellan so that
uh,
you can educate us.
Sige. So one is really this idea that our islands was isolated before Magellan came. That we before they discovered us, that our ancestors were just savages before Magellan came. And this year is actually special because it's 500 years since.
500
Yeah,
years
exactly
this
500 years.
June.
Yeah, since they discovered our islands, and he was killed by Lapu-Lapu. But there's still a lot of misconceptions even in the Philippines. I see on social media nowadays, like, they would say, like, uh, if without colonialism, without Magellan coming to the Philippines, then Filipinos would not be civilized. We would not have culture. So that's one misconception, that our history is much deeper than Magellan. Even if we just look at in a Western sense of history, the written records, the oldest document written about the Philippines and written in the Philippines is the Laguna Copper Plate, and it was written in the year 900. So that's
What?
600 years.
Laguna copper plate? I've
Yeah,
never heard of that, Kirby.
yeah. So it's in the National Museum, if you want to say, in Manila. So it's a 8 by 11, I think, piece of copper that has inscriptions from an ancient script that is even older than Baybayin. So
Wow.
and
And I
then
can see you light up when you talk
yeah.
about it. You're so passionate about this.
Thank you. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it tells us that our ancestors were one. And if you actually read, well, I can't read it. I cannot even read it myself. But if you actually read the translation, it tells us that our ancestors have deeper roots than just Magellan. 621 years before Magellan came to the Philippines, they already had this amazing civilization. They're writing things on copper. It's not
Wow.
on paper, it's on copper. And then it mentions different places, from places, they listed places in Mindanao. So the copper plate, actually, it was from Tondo in Manila. So but then the places they listed are from Bulacan, Mindanao, and even Indonesia. So it shows that, in the year 900, our ancestors were really interconnected, with the different parts of Asia. So it was actually a parang ang tawag dito, a receipt, para siyang resibo. So the whole summary of it is like, this person paid his debt, hindi na siya, wala na siyang utang, so his descendants are now pardoned from the debt that he owed to the other king. So yun yung summary ng Laguna Copper Plate. So that's another misconception, that we before Magellan there's no civilization in the Philippines, which is not true. Yeah, ano
Mm.
pa ba?
So we know that in the 1500s,
Mm-hmm.
1527, I'm not exactly sure.
1521, yeah, when he came.
1521,
Mm-hmm.
Magellan came, right?
Yeah.
And then it was named after King Philip of
Yes.
Spain,
Yeah.
in Philippines. What
Mm-hmm.
were we called before then?
This is another misconception. People think we were called Maharlika, the whole islands, but actually, there's no name for the Philippines, the whole archipelago back then. So there's different kingdoms. Marami kasi different kingdoms. For example, Sulu is Sulu, and then
Right.
the Tagalogs and Kapampangan people belong to the place called Lusong or Luzon, which is now Luzon.
Luzon,
Yeah.
yes.
So there's different names. Even the Chinese wrote about a place called Mai, which some scholars believe is Mindoro. So
Mindoro. Huh.
there's really different names. It wasn't it wasn't just one big collection of country or islands that has one name. So we had different diverse names. So there's really no single name for the entire archipelago. It depends on where you're from, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested, and I've always been fascinated about this Filipina myth
Mm.
called Princesa or Duha.
Oh yeah.
So there was this merchant who wrote about
Mhm.
her, and was she real?
From what we know, scholars are still debating if she was real or not, but most of them say if she's real. But it's just they're debating where who she is or who she was and where she was from. Um,
Right.
so the merchant, the traveler that wrote about her is Ibn Battuta from
Ibn
I think
Battuta, that's
he's from
right.
Morocco. Yeah, he's an Arab
Mhm.
traveler. So and he's like the Marco Polo of the Arab world, who wrote and traveled across the world. Pero if you look at Marco Polo and compare it to Ibn Battuta, Marco Polo has more myth in his writings as opposed to Ibn Battuta, who was really just reporting what he saw. So
Okay.
Ibn Battuta was more of an accurate source. So that alone tells us that Orduha was a real person, was a
Yes.
real
So
princess.
for
Yeah.
people that don't know, Princesa
Hmm.
Orduha was she was a chief,
Yeah, she was the
right?
ruler of her kingdom.
And she was a woman, right?
Yeah.
Which we think of the Philippines as a very patriarchal
Hmm.
society, but
Yeah.
in
No, in
reality,
practice, it's
right?
not.
Oh, the babaylans, which were
Hmm.
the priestesses,
Yeah.
were really the ones
Hmm.
who looked over, society and
Hmm.
was in charge. The
Yeah.
women were in charge.
Yeah. They were really respected. They were seen as, if not equal, even better than men.
Wow,
Actually, there's like
that's a mind blowing concept when you think about it, right?
yeah. And we actually still see it today in our culture. For example, Kapampangas are actually very matriarchal, for those who may not know. So even if the dad is, for example, my stepdad, he makes the money, but my mom manages the money. So my mom is in charge. so
Right.
so there's a lot of those elements that survives. Even when World War II came in the Philippines, when we were invaded, there's actually a lot of guerrilleras who fought the Japanese to defend our
That were
community. Yeah,
women.
they were, and they're not just
Like,
like
yay.
soldiers. Marami sa kanila mga commanders, generals in these
Oo.
guerrilla armies that they also started themselves. So marami sa kanila talaga Pinay.
Yeah,
So
I'm so fascinated by that, Kirby. In fact, I'm working on Yay Panlilio,
mm,
um, because with another friend of mine.
yeah.
So, okay, there are people that are asking us, like our board chair is here. Shout out to Teresa Kalimag
Hi.
who's here, or Kalamag rather. Um, and she asks, how do you pick the topics for your channel? What is your
Mm.
process?
For me, as much as I can, I try to plan ahead para ma-sustain yung schedule. But sometimes there's a topic that I just don't feel like doing. And then I have a long list of a bucket list of topics, but sometimes I just don't feel like I don't feel like I have the right energy or the right.
Because it takes energy, right?
Mhm.
You have to
Yeah, yeah,
research. You
yeah.
know, I mean, no one is a born historian,
Yes,
right?
true. Maraming malalim the research and fact checking before I even start recording.
Okay,
And
so
sometimes even when I'm recording, I stop myself to Google something to make sure I got the right date or the right spelling of someone's name.
okay, we see behind you you have UC Davis.
Hmm.
Talk to us about the important work that you did at UC Davis for
Thank you.
um, co-founding the Carlos
Yeah.
San Center. Tell us about that.
That actually started when I was in undergrad, in UC Davis when I took ethnic studies. I took a class with Professor Robin Rodriguez, who's now the director, the executive director of Bulosan Center. And it really started when we were undergrads. We wanted to create a space for Filipino scholars to give back to the community. So it's not just a space. When we envisioned it, it wasn't just supposed to be a space that is just for scholars, this ivory tower. It was really meant to be a space to connect our work, our scholarly work, with the community and giving back to the community. So it started 2013 when I first got involved, when we first gathered with her and a bunch of other students. And it wasn't really until 2018 that we were able to really launched it and open a space. And it was really a community effort. So the first funding that we got, before we even got the state funding, it was really just donations from the different community members throughout the US that we reached out to, who believed in the same vision. So it was really a community effort to have a space for our people. And to be honest, the university wasn't really as supportive as they should have been until after we actually launched it. So when they realized that, oh, you're getting much attention now, that's when they started reaching out to us, like, okay, we can help you raise more funds. So even the whole $1 million that the center got from the state as a one-time grant from the state legislature, we did it ourselves. It was a community effort. The letters that we wrote, the community testimonies, it was really mostly from the community, and it wasn't really the
University.
university wasn't as supportive as they should have been. Yeah.
Understood. So there is a power, and we know
And the
this.
community coming together.
Yes, there is power when the community comes together, and
Mhm.
we know this because you're a community organizer, Kirby. We see that with your work in NAFCON.
Thank you. Shout
Talk
out to
to us
NAFCON.
about, yeah, shout out to NAFCON. Talk to us about, that fancy Harvard sign behind you. Tell us.
So I did start a graduate program at Harvard a few years ago. Actually, around the same time I started doing educational videos. But I took a break. Actually, took a break to help to focus helping launch Bulosan Center in 2017 when I took a break from grad school, and then I left working for UC Davis last 2019 at the end of 2019 to focus. I said, like, okay, I'll go back to my grad school, finish it. Since the center has been launched, it's in a good place. So I can I can leave and pursue my own degree. But then the pandemic started, so I was like, okay, I don't want to go back to school during this time. It was a little bit more complicated. So
So, what were you taking up at Harvard?
history, yeah. So I was taking graduate courses on history. Yeah.
Okay. And did you find any Filipino history specifically?
It was in my classes at Harvard where I found out that, for example, when the United States occupied the Philippines, when they started establishing schools in the Philippines, the education system was actually not meant to educate Filipinos, but it was meant to create armies of workers. They call it industrial education, where the curriculum is really teaching students to create products that then they could sell in the US. Like that's why we have a lot of this school competitions where you make furnitures in the Philippines, like ratan or baskets, all this cottage industry. So when I learned about that, I was really shocked. Okay, so
Wow!
that's their education to Filipinos.
To make us worker bees so that they can profit
Mhm.
from the backs of the Filipinos.
Yeah, that was like a shocking um, learning for me when when I did the reading. Like, wow, they actually did that. They actually called it industrial education. So it wasn't meant to teach us critical thinking skills.
Okay, so let's go back to Asian
Mhm.
American
Yeah.
Pacific Islander Heritage Month. How can we assert
Mm.
our heritage as Filipinos in America? Because there are various degrees, right,
Yeah.
Kirby?
Yeah.
Some are okay just eating the adobo,
Yeah.
eating the food. That's
Yeah.
their level, and they're not interested in more.
Mhm.
For the people that are hungry, right? Nagugutom.
Yeah.
We want to learn more about what it
Mm.
means to be a Filipino. What are your suggestions?
My suggestion is always start from your home. Start from your family, from your parents, from your elders or grandparents. If they're still around, start from there. Because a lot of the heritage talaga is what survived and what they, what survived from the past. That's really the definition of heritage, what survived and what was passed down to us. So to celebrate our heritage is really for me, is to, dig deeper from our own family's roots. Well, learning about history is fun, but if you learn about your own family's history, it's even more meaningful and can be even more significant. It has a more, um, if you learn about, for example, if you learn about the struggles your grandparents went through to go to come to the U.S., those are really empowering.
Mm.
I have students who are descendants of the Manongs. So for them, learning about, like, they didn't even know that their dad or their grandpa was a Manong until later on when they took college courses. So they were really empowered that, oh, this my grandparents went through all this struggle to bring us where we are today. So for me, heritage is really learning about your own roots and embodying those lessons um, that our elders and ancestors experience. So building upon from what they built for us. So for me,
Mm.
heritage is really starts from your home, starts from your immediate circle. And if you have access to your grandparents still, so I highly encourage everyone to talk to your elders. Sometimes they don't want to share, sometimes they don't really want to share stories, but if you push a little bit more,
Yes, if you,
they'll share.
yeah, if you poke a little bit more,
Yeah.
I do have family members, and I think that in all families we have drama, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But I do have family members that live here in
Mhm.
America. They don't want to have anything to do with the Philippines because
Yeah.
it wasn't a good experience for
Yeah.
them. 'Di ba? Pag
Yeah.
Pilipino ka, pag hindi ka mistisa,
Mhm.
kapag 'di ba, ang hirap ng
Yeah.
buhay. We know this with your work at NAFCON. I know
Yeah.
this with my work with, with
Yeah.
activist groups. It's not good
Yeah.
memories, right? So they want to sort of erase
Yeah.
and not think about what it means to be Filipino.
Yeah.
It just was traumatic.
Yeah. And that's understandable.
'Di ba? So
Yeah.
how do we have those hard conversations with our family
Yeah.
members who don't want to have anything to do with the Philippines dahil pag bring up yung Pilipinas, ay wala nang wala nang pag-asa yung
Mhm.
Pilipinas na yan.
Yeah.
That's what I hear a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah, we
from
do. Yeah.
Filipinos, and that makes me sad.
Yeah.
'Di ba? Because not everybody has an opportunity like
Mhm.
you to be in touch with culture
Yeah.
bearers,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Um so paano yun?
Um, I guess there's no like cookie cutter answer to the question. There's no like one strategy that works. For me, it's sometimes I ask or I talk because some of my elders are actually not as open to sharing. So
Mhm.
when I ask them, I really start with the fun memories, muna, like the good memories. Actually, when my partner Yi, who's Hmong, who's not Filipino, when she first met my grandparents, she would actually ask them how they met, and that opened up this whole like conversation about how they met and how they fell in love in the basketball court.
Oh, wow!
Yeah,
Sa basketball court.
yeah, and this wasn't and this wasn't just what do you call this? They don't usually. I'm sorry until after my partner asked them.
You didn't even know.
Yeah. So sometimes you just start with those simple memories that they may have, the fun ones, muna. You know,
Mhm.
ease
Yeah,
into it.
before the hard,
Yeah.
bakit umalis ng Pilipinas,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So, Kirby, I just want to acknowledge that you have been so open to sharing your wisdom with everybody, and FilAm Arts is just so honored to be able to partner with you. We
Thank
know that
you.
you have a lot of things in the works. How can we all support what you're doing? And tell us what you've got cooking, kasi gusto
Okay.
namin sumuporta sa'yo.
Thank you. One, I'm planning more videos to come. I haven't actually made a video in almost more than 3 weeks now, actually, because a
Because
lot
it's
of things
been
were
busy.
happening. Yeah,
You've
there's
been
a lot of
busy
events.
this month, right?
Yeah, so I had a lot of like different lectures in the Philippines. Actually, my next one on Monday is with Filipino high school students. I'm excited because they're younger, they're more eager to learn. But yeah, I have other events. You can find more information about it on my social media, and I've also started writing a series of books and coloring books that I called Know Our Roots. So the first one just came out last month, and the first one is Luzones because I'm I'm Tagalog and Kapampangan, so these are my ancestors. So I started with my own ancestors to honor them, and then this other book is about, it's also about the Luzones, about specifically about Tondo, slavery, and the revolt of the Lacans. So I started a series of books. The next one actually is exciting because the next one was inspired by Raya, the Disney movie, and
Yeah.
it's about it's about Southeast Asian women. Urduha is one of them. So I collected different stories. At first I was like, okay, I'll come up with 12 different warrior princess and empowering women from ancient Southeast Asia, pre-colonial Southeast Asia. But as I did more research, as I collected more stories, now I have like, I think almost 30.
30 women
Yeah, from
warriors?
different parts of Southeast Asia.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it shows how our ancestors were very really matriarchal. Women were really powerful back in the day.
So, Kirby, are you self-publishing all of these
Yes, yeah. So
books?
this series is self-published by me.
That's amazing. Where can people order this?
You can order them on lulu.com, or actually I have them on my website too, at kirbyaraullo.com/shop. And there's actually a sale right now kasi Heritage Month. So I have a coupon code APA. What about APA? Let me double check what I have.
All right, we can share that with people
Yeah.
that are watching here on FilAm Arts. Make sure to order. You can get these books for your kids, for gifts for other people that you know who have kids. Lahat tayo mga ninong at ninang. These are great, excellent gifts
Yeah.
because you get to learn about who we are,
Yes.
and we don't have a lot of material on who we are,
Mhm.
right? So that's why we want to amplify whatever
Thank
you're
you.
doing, Kirby. So what's that code?
Where is it? APIHM21.
API
HM21.
HM21. So
So-
Asian American Pacific Islander
Mhm.
Heritage Month 21.
Yes, yeah.
Make sure that you use that code when you
On
order
checkout,
on the
yeah.
website, so that you get
There's
discount,
10% off, yeah.
10%
On
off.
on everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you can also get it. Hi, Yi!
Oh, hey.
Yi is tuning in. Thank you.
Yeah, she's home with her parents right now. They have a ritual for her sister.
That's
So
amazing.
that's also celebrating heritage.
Absolutely.
The family traditions.
Absolutely. So yes, Kirby is a kuya and a mentor to so many students. So that's why I'm going to start calling you Kuya Kirby from now on.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you know what? We've been talking and chatting for almost 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And I just want to say thank you on behalf of FilAm Arts, the nonprofit organization. We'd love to work with you again, Kirby. Everything that you're doing is so inspiring.
Thank you.
And people that are tuning in are saying they're so proud to be Pinoy, right?
Yay.
So what does it look like for us to celebrate our heritage as Filipinos every single day, right?
Yeah. For me, it's really embodying what we learn from our elders. Embodying those values, like for example, helping each other, like the spirit of bayanihan. Yeah.
Amazing.
It could be anything. I mean, in anything from our elders that we can build upon.
Yeah. So there is a book that I have read about the psychology of the Filipino, right? Kasi not a lot of people know that the psychology of the Filipino is talagang makatulong sa iba, right?
Yeah.
So, as we end Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, because it's ending kasi June na.
Yes, it's in less than 10 days.
Yeah. As we end it, let's think about helping others, right?
Yes.
And really being proud of who we are as Filipinos beyond the Manny Pacquiaos and the Miss Universes of the world.
Yeah. Those are fun, but don't stop there.
Okay. All right, Kirby, last words for our audience as we say goodbye.
Last words. Really, I encourage everyone to dig deeper in your own family's histories, own roots. Talk to your elders about your oral traditions. Because a lot of the times, when it comes to history, we rely so much on the written records, but a lot of the history is really passed down through memory. the lived experiences of our elders, our lived experiences that we can pass down to the next generation. So for me, my advice to a lot of folks, younger or older, is to really talk about it. Write it down, because if we don't write it down, we no one's gonna write it down.
Gone.
Yeah,
It's
it's gone.
gone.
The memory's gone if you don't write it down. They're not gonna do it for us. We have to do it ourselves for ourselves. So yeah, my one advice is like value the oral traditions that we learn from our elders, like the things that they went through, learn from our elders. Or what I also remind my viewers in my channel every time I mention knowing our roots is really, it's not just about throwing back to the glitz and glamour ng ating mga ancestors, because they had, everybody wore gold, even the dead wore gold and the slaves wore gold. So it's not just about throwing back to the past, the good things about the past, but really, yeah, ang ganda.
My giniling bracelet.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oo, pero I learned that the giniling bracelet is because in the field, meron kang hawak na bolo.
Yeah.
And when you
To protect,
strike,
yeah.
it's to protect
Yeah.
your veins.
Wrist, yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought it was just, for decorative purpose.
Yeah.
Pero hindi, it protects us
Yeah.
when we're out in the fields, which
Parang,
obviously
yeah.
we do, right?
Yeah.
Understanding that makes me so much more appreciative of wearing it. Na hindi
Yeah.
ko tanggal.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like really deeper meanings and different things in our culture that we just need to really dig deeper. Yeah, and just a reminder too, again, hindi lang siya throwback to the beautiful things in the past, but really learning from the mistakes of our ancestors then, learning from their shortcomings, learning about history is not just like, amplifying the beautiful things, but really learning from both, the good and the bad, and use those as tools to really, what do you call this? Lay a foundation for a brighter future for the next generation. So that's how we really celebrate. For me, that's how I celebrate heritage. Is really not just dressing up. That was fun, but yeah, diba wrong. Really, just take those lessons from our ancestors, those wisdom, actually, not just lessons, wisdoms from our ancestors to light a brighter future for our future generation, our next generations. Like my shout out to my baby brother. I call him my baby brother, Gabriel.
Congratulations!
He's now a father.
Wow, that's
yeah, this
huge.
morning. Yeah, I found out. I woke up to the news that I now have a nephew.
Oh,
Yeah, so for them, for the future generation. Thank
all
you.
right.
Salamat.
Salamat so much, Kirby. Marami salam, right? As
Salamat,
we
yeah.
From your lecture or your short lecture, right?
Thank you.
And I also want to give a shout out to Marcy Taylor, our board member who's doing tech behind this to make this possible. Kirby, sana maulit, ha?
Yes. Yeah, of course.
All right.
Let's do this again.
Okay, well, happy Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And more power to you, Kirby. Salamat.
Maraming salamat. Maraming salamat. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Kita kits.